Hi, in this video, we are going to look at various storage options that are available in Google Cloud Platform. We are also going to see how these different storage components fit in an enterprise data architecture and also which storage option is relevant based on use case in hand. So let's get started. Now, if we take a typical data lifecycle, these are like four steps of a data lifecycle. You have ingest, store, process and analyze, and explore and visualize. These are the four different phases or of a data lifecycle. Now, data can come as a regular batch file, and that's where what you do is you typically take the data and store it and then analyze it. So basically you are analyzing the information after the fact has happened, but in some use cases you want to analyze as the data is coming in real time. And in those cases, what you might want to do is you take the ingest data, you first process the data and analyze it, and then store it. And when you store it, you store both the raw information that has come in and also additional information gained via processing and analyzing. So there are two ways to store the data. One is when real time you act on the data as soon as it happens and then store it, and when it's coming as a typical batch file, you just store it and then do the analysis part of it, right? So there are four components in a typical data lifecycle. The first stage is ingest. Ingest is the stage where you basically pull all the raw data from your different on-premise infrastructure. It can be your legacy mainframe system, or it can be a databases, or it can be any data store. You pull your data from IoT devices or other real-time streaming system. You have your application logs and mobile logs. So you pull, you kind of take all the raw data, and then you store it. So once you have the data, you make the data accessible for analysis. So in order for you to make accessible for analysis, you need to see how the data can be presented to the multiple use cases, and that's where the different storage format comes into play, which we will cover in the rest of the videos. Right, you process and analyze the data. Doing the process and analyze, basically you transform the data into a form. Your data is still raw when you store it. You want to transform the data into a form where it can be easily analyzed by downstream application. And finally you kind of we explore the data. The exploration can be a typical advanced analytics. You can even build predictive models to draw insights from the data, and you can also just visualize your key business KPIs or other metric that you have. Right, this is how typically a data life cycle looks like. Now, see, this is a simple architecture of data in an GCP platform. GCP is Google Cloud Platform, right? So if you see on the left hand side, what we are doing is we are ingesting data from various sources. It can be your IoT sensors, it can be your clickstream, which is the user activity, it can be your online transaction processing system, which are running on your premise or any environment, or it can be also your other legacy system that you have. Now, the data sources are going to be same irrespective of you are using your on-premise service or another cloud platform or any cloud platform. Now what you do is you take the data and you load it into a centralized data lake, right? The data lake is nothing but a raw store, and in Google Cloud Platform, the raw store is typically your Google Cloud Storage bucket. I will talk in detail each of this component. So GCS is your data lake typically, but your data lake can be anything. You can build your data lake on any you can even build a data warehouse directly, but in this case we are assuming that we have a data lake where we want to store data for analysis, raw data for analysis, and also we will provide multiple forms of data to down consumers who can take the data and do a further analysis or further analytics on top of it as they want, right? Now, the second part is like to bring data, you can either directly load the data into a data lake, or Google Cloud also provides multiple services. They provides like they provide like transfer services or transfer appliances. So in the case of transfer appliances, what if you want to migrate large volume of data into cloud for analysis, you are your transfer appliance comes into play. So the transfer appliance is basically an high capacity storage server that you lease from Google. You take it from Google, you lease it, you kind of load all your data and ship it to Google Cloud facility, where they will load the data for you into your Google Cloud storage bucket. The next option, next one, if you see on the top, is basically you have data coming from streaming platform. Now, Cloud PubSub is kind of a streaming platform that they provide. It's very similar to Kafka, but again, the components I am storing showing over here are pretty specific to Google Cloud. Now, you can also use non-Google Cloud provider services on GCP. Like if you want any other storage format, you can use MongoDB, Cassandra, HBase, and others. But I'm going to more focus on Google Cloud native storage services. So Cloud PubSub is more like a publishing subscribing platform or a streaming platform where you take the data. Typically, it's used for capturing real-time information. And Cloud Data Flow is their processing platform. Now, this Cloud Data Flow, instead of Cloud Data Flow, which is based on Apache Beam, you can also use Cloud Data Proc, which is nothing but a Hadoop-based ecosystem, which supports Hadoop and which supports Hive and Spark and other processing framework. Now you have on cloud storage. Now once you have on cloud storage, your data scientist may want access to the raw data, right? And that's where you have cloud data prep, which is nothing but trifactor provided in on cloud as a service. Or you can have cloud data lab. Data lab is nothing, your Jupyter notebook that they provide. And data lab in the new version has changed to AI platform notebook and AI platform predictions to once you deploy the model. Now this is a little older image, but it's still relevant. Now this image is taken from the Google Cloud platform, and all the images are taken from Google Cloud documentation, right? So instead of data lab, now it's AI platform notebook, where your data scientist can build model. And once you have your model ready or something, you can deploy it on Cloud ML Engine, which is nothing but AI platform predictions today. And you can also take the raw data that you have, and you can provide it in a way it can be consumed easily. For example, your reporting system might need an aggregated view of data. There you may want to build a data warehouse, and for that you have other storage platform like Cloud BigQuery. You may want to more kind of ingest time series data or IoT data in with a high throughput system, and where you can analyze easily. You can use Cloud Bigtable, which is nothing but an HBase database that Google Cloud provides. Or you want to just take the data and provide more transactional support, and that's where you have like Cloud SQL, Cloud Spanner, or other systems that are available. So typically this is how an high level GCP architecture looks like, right? And coming to the storage in specific, right, you have multiple storage options on Google Cloud. You have Google BigQuery, which I'll be talking each one of this in detail. You have Google Cloud SQL, Cloud Spanner, then you have basically Google Cloud Storage, you have Bigtable, and you have data store, Google Cloud Data Store. As I said, these are all Google native services, but if you want to install MongoDB or Cassandra or Apache HBase or Elasticsearch or any DB, you can either do it on a compute engine instance, or some of the providers are provided a way to spin up the environment easily and then use it, like Cassandra or MongoDB. They provide managed service as well. Now when we talk about relational database in specific on Google Cloud platform, you have Cloud SQL and Cloud Spanner. These are pure ACID complaint databases which you can use for transaction processing, where you need pretty good consistency, as well as you need two-phase commit or whatever ACID complaint options are. All that you need, you use relational databases. If you're trying to build a data warehouse, right, if you already have a data warehouse in Teradata or any other on-premise system, or you want to build a data warehouse, something similar that Google has is Google BigQuery. And then you have NoSQL databases. Now those NoSQL databases comes in like more like a document oriented database and whereas column oriented database. So the column oriented database that is on Google Cloud platform is nothing but your Google Bigtable, Google Cloud Bigtable, that is again based on HBase, and not based on HBase. It supports HBase API, but it is kind of Google's own proprietary way of of having it. And if you see, HBase was actually offshoot of Google Bigtable, Google Cloud Bigtable. Yeah, there is a documentation that Google published long back. You can check it out, and Google uses that almost in all of their products. Right. The second is JSON-based storage. If you know MongoDB, MongoDB is a JSON-based storage, a similar service that Google provides. Google provides us a data store, Google Cloud Data Store, which you can use for document NoSQL platform. Right. Now let's go into the detail of each one of this. The very first thing I'm going to talk about is cloud storage. Now, cloud storage is a service for storing your objects in Google Cloud. The objects can be anything. The objects can be structured or unstructured, or it can be any format. It can be images, it can be your PDF file, it can be even structured data. What cloud storage offers is a durable and highly available object storage, as I said, for both structured and unstructured data. It can be your log files, database backups, export files, images, binary files, and almost many of those files that are there. One thing to note is it is immutable storage. If you see, like, it's a immutable blob storage. And what does immutable mean? You cannot basically go and update or append to the record in a normal way that you will do with the typical relational databases or even your data warehouses. So in this case, it is if you want to append, you have to kind of make a copy of the file and then append the record and store it as a new object altogether. If you want to update, then again you have to process and store it. So it is basically an immutable file system. It is good for doing like a bulk upload into GCS. You can do that very well. You can just create a file and then push the file, the data, but it's immutable. Right. And what you can do is the way the data is organized on Google Cloud is something called buckets. So buckets are kind of an physical partitioning of your data. When I say partitioning, just a separation of your data. And these buckets can support either custom access control list, or it can be centralized via access control, can be centralized via their identity and access management control. Now let's take an example. Right, when I talk about bucket, say you are an organization which has multiple line of business. You have HR function, you have marketing function, your sales function, or other function. Each of this function or a sub function within this function can be a bucket, and that bucket can be given access to a set of users who have right access to it. For others, you can control access, and that's how basically you divide and distribute your bucket. You can also pass on, say the marketing team will need access to the sales bucket. You can create a view, or you can create other like other management activity on top of it, and pass on only specific control to different group. And that's what basically your HIAM and your access control list comes into play. Now you can easily transfer data to cloud storage. You can either use the transfer service, or you can use the transfer appliance to move data from on-premise to cloud. Transfer appliance is basically, as I said, you lease an equipment, you put all your data and send to the cloud, and they will load the data for you. You can use this when you have a lot of data and for one-time movement to the cloud. Otherwise, like, you can also use a typical transfer service which moves the data from your on-premise to cloud. It supports both data encryption in flight and at rest. And there are basically different storage classes over here. Now there is standard storage, which is more for odd data. So if you have like data that needs like immediate access or something like that, you can keep it in the standard storage bucket. You have nearline storage. So as you go into more storage format that is more like archive based, your cost will reduce a lot. So what you can have is, you can have the current data as hot data, and you can have data more than 30 days or something like that as nearline storage data. So typically your backups and everything, you may want to have nearline storage. So in case if something goes wrong, you can always retrieve it easily. At the same time, you are not paying a high cost as standard storage. Then you have cold line storage. Cold line storage is again very low cost over here, and you can basically keep it for all your disaster recovery and other functions over here, that can be that you can use it for. Finally, archival storage. Now typically enterprise has lot of legacy data, right? You need it for a regulatory purpose. You don't want to delete any historical data. Sometimes you need the regulatory data to be stored somewhere, so tomorrow a regulator comes and asks, you can show him. So you can use the archive storage, which is the lowest cost of all, and you can just keep piling the data forever. or all the time till when you need it. So these are the key characteristic of Google Cloud Storage, and Google Cloud Storage is a key component of building your data lake infrastructure, right? So if you are trying to build a data lake, then Google Storage is a pretty good option. Now, if you see over here, Google Cloud Storage is integrated with almost any function of other any services that Google provides. So in BigQuery, you can use Google Cloud Storage to import and export tables. So you have raw data in Google Cloud Storage. Now you want to define a schema to the particular raw data. You can use BigQuery. Now, when we talk about GCS, when we load the data does not have any schema defined. It does not have any columns, or it does not have any format to it, data type and all. So, but when you want to give access it to downstream consumers, or you want to aggregate and keep it, you want to provide some kind of schema to it. And BigQuery is more like a data warehouse layer on top of your data lake, which can like provide schema to it, which can provide more readability to it, and also it can do like petabyte scale processing. So BigQuery is kind of a data warehouse that can sit on top of your Google Cloud Storage bucket. Your App Engine is there, where you can store all your data store backups and logs and everything. Then on the right hand side, your Compute Engine. If you have a custom image that you want to load in a Compute Engine, you can have it stored on GCS. And for Cloud SQL, which is the relational database, you can have all your import and export table scripts over there. So basically, it's tightly integrated. All the services are tightly integrated with your Google Cloud Storage. You can use for multiple use cases. As I said, it can be used for data backup, disaster recovery, data lake, your content distribution. If you are distributing a lot of files to other external vendors, then you can have it in Google Cloud Storage. There are a lot of different use cases that are there when we talk about Google Cloud Storage. The next one we are going to talk about is Bigtable. Now, cloud storage is basically store structured and unstructured data, but there's no schema defined. It's more kind of a batch processing system that you have. Right now, Cloud Bigtable is again a fully managed, high performance, NoSQL database service, and it's designed for terabyte to petabyte scale workload. The best thing about this is the service provides almost consistent data. It's almost consistent when I say, but you cannot have the relationship that you have in your typical RDBMS or other system, right? But it's consistent within that entity. It provides very low latency and high throughput storage. So if you take IoT devices, you will get a data continuously every second or millisecond depending on devices, and you will get from thousands of devices. Now, how you can store the data? Basically, you can use Bigtable for that. Bigtable can not only does not only allow you to retrieve the data in pretty low latency, but also it provides high throughput storage for you. It is built for real-time app workload, and also it supports analytical functions as well. So if you want to run a MapReduce on top of it, if you want to run an cloud data proc function on top of it, you can still use Bigtable over here. So there are multiple ways Bigtable can be used. It can be used for low latency querying, as well as it can be used for analytical workload. I'm going to talk about processing more in my future videos. Thus, I'm going to more focus on the storage side of it. Now, when you design a cloud Bigtable, the schema, when you design it, you can either design it as an tall row or wide row. So let me explain what is tall row and what is wide row. Now, tall schema, typically if you take a time series data, now we may have very few columns when it comes to time series data, but the data will be coming every second or every millisecond or microsecond. So in this case, what we do is each record we insert as a row that is coming in. So I have data at one, then I am inserting 102, inserting 103, inserting it. I keep on inserting all the data, and I have basically all the columns. I have very few columns in this case. So this is like tall schema. It is typical to how your relational database work. But in some cases, when you are managing user activity, say you want to understand all your customer activity for the last 90 days. So in this case, what you can do is, rather than creating a tall table where inserting each record of a customer, you can create a wide table. So basically you are creating one user ID, and each of the user activities is going as a column. So if your user has 2000 activity for last 30 days, you may have like close to 2000 columns over there. So this is like kind of white table. The way cloud big table work is it's kind of a key value pair. And what I mean by key value pair is, so basically when you want to query the particular table, you have a single indexed row key associated with an particular entire row. So you can directly go and query that particular row and you can retrieve all the data. In the case of time series example, say I want to go and query a data. I'm capturing time series data from IoT sensors, and there are thousands of sensors. I want to go and query. So I'll define my row key as a kind of maybe the IoT device ID followed by the timestamp and everything. So what I can do is I can directly go and query that row and retrieve the data at that particular point of time. I can also do range lookup where I say I want data for this particular device from this time to this time. So it is very good for low latency querying and also for analytical workload. And typically, if you see, basically it is used in your financial data, it is used in your IoT data, it is even used in your time series data set storing. Now, if you see like basically the big table access pattern, this is how it looks like. It supports your typical application API. It is, as I said, it is a HBase based system. So if you are comfortable with Apache HBase, you can just use Apache HBase API to query this particular cloud big table. So you don't have to learn a new language if you already know HBase, and you can directly migrate your HBase data to Cloud Bigtable. You can also use streaming services. You can insert data into Bigtable or retrieve data from your data flow streaming service or your Spark streaming or Apache Storm or any kind of streaming framework or non-streaming framework. You can also use it for batch processing, where you can use Spark. You can connect to Spark Bigtable, or you can write it to a Bigtable. You can use Dataflow, which is nothing but based on Apache Beam, and you can use MapReduce, and you can use any of this when you are using basically Cloud Bigtable. Here I'm showing the same thing. It supports cloud data flow integration, cloud data proc. Data proc is nothing but there are big data environment for spinning up Hadoop and Spark jobs. So you can use with that. You can also use your on-premise cloud-based Hadoop to connect and pull the data if you have an hybrid cloud environment. So all this is possible. The typical use cases that you have for Bigtable is your real-time app data. You can connect your web data, web data to also HBase. You have stream processing, IoT data, typically your advertisement workloads. You will have a lot of data coming in ad tech workload. You can use it for that. You can use it for analytical workload as well. The next is Cloud SQL. Now, Cloud SQL is basically a fully managed cloud native relational database service. So when I say relational database, if you're using MySQL on-premise or PostgreSQL or SQL Server, there are similar functions available in Cloud SQL. So if you are having a MySQL, you can spin up a Cloud SQL with a MySQL instance on top of it, or you can spin up a PostgreSQL. So it is pretty similar to your RDBMS. Nothing changes. You write the same SQL query, but here it provides you an pretty much a managed service over here. You still use the same standard APIs that you connect to Postgre or MySQL or SQL Server. Nothing change. It supports workload up to 30 terabyte. So up to 30 terabyte, you should be good. But if you have more than 30 terabyte, then there is one other RDBMS service which is called Cloud Spanner, which I will talk next. In this case, it also provides automatic replication of data. You don't have to like really, when I say managed service, right, you don't have to really go and install, monitor, admin. You can just spin up this instance on the fly. You still have to monitor your queries and everything, but you don't have to worry a lot of the administration part of it. Right, it is kind of, I would say, like vertically scalable. Yes, you can add more RAM and scale it vertically. It also supports horizontal scalability, but horizontal scalability is something which you have to manage. They don't manage it. You can control the horizontal scalability over there, but this is not the ideal one if you have to scale too much, because again you are entering into an admin overhead, and that's where you go into Cloud Spanner. Now, similar to your any other table, it provides integration with your App Engine. App Engine is nothing where you deploy your application. It can be a Java application or Python application or any other application. or it can integrate easily with your compute engine instances via a command line utility or any application that you deploy, or you can connect it with any external service, because as I said, it is just a regular API that you will connect as you do with your MySQL or PostgreSQL. Right. Now, the next one is pretty similar to your Cloud SQL, but it is the Cloud Spanner supports a petabyte scale data, but it does not have the 30 terabyte limitation that Cloud SQL have, and it has all the features that are there of Cloud SQL. The thing is, if you see the last time I said vertical scalability, this is more a horizontally scalable system. At the same time, it provides strong consistency as well that is required for an relational database. Now, what do you mean by vertical scalable and horizontal scalable? When we talk about vertical scalable, basically what you do is you take a single instance, and then if you want to scale, you add more memory, more RAM, and you keep scaling vertically. But at one point you will hit a bottleneck. Your system cannot scale more than, say, like 2 terabyte RAM or some amount of memory or whatever it is, right? 2 terabyte RAM or disk space, you may hit that bottleneck. So that's why the horizontal scalability comes into play. So rather than just vertically scaling, you bring in more nodes, and then you tie the nodes together, which will act more like a distributed system. Now, in this case, you can add as much nodes you want. You want more memory and RAM, add additional nodes to it. That is more instances to it. That's what we are doing in this case. So it's an horizontally scalable system. At the same time, it has all the properties of your typical RDBMS system. It also supports automatic replication. It supports larger workload than Cloud SQL, which I said now, and it is SQL compliant. So basically, you will run the normal SQL queries like you run for Cloud SQL. That's what it is. It is also used in typical financial services, wherever your data volume is more than what a Cloud SQL supports, right? If your data volume is just like 1 terabyte or less than that, maybe you are fine with Cloud SQL. But if you want to support more volume, that's where Cloud Spanner comes into play. The next one I'm going to talk about is BigQuery. And BigQuery is a very key component of Google Cloud Platform. It is also a pretty differentiated component of Google Cloud Platform when you compare any other cloud provider. Google BigQuery is one of the thing where you can build a data warehouse which can store large quantity of data, both for query analysis and kind of interactive query processing, right? So that's what BigQuery is. It is more for your data warehouse workload. And now, for you can ingest the data into BigQuery multiple ways. You can use it via any command line utility, via web interface, via REST API calls. You can do multiple ways to ingest the data into BigQuery. You can have your data on Google Cloud Storage and then just create tables using the Google Cloud Storage data. You can also create internal tables and external tables. So internal tables is basically Google Cloud. BigQuery will load the data for you into its storage. External is you are just having link to the file which is in the Google Cloud Storage. That is the difference. Now, when you're loading data in the bulk, the data can be in the form of typical CSV file or JSON file or Avro file. It can be in any format when you load it. And after that, what you do is you just issue and command line call or REST API call to load the data inside BigQuery table. It also supports streaming data. That is the best part of it. So you can use your PubSub, which is similar to Kafka, and your data flow to insert insert real-time data into BigQuery. You can do that as well. So it supports like streaming data insertion as well. And as you can see over here, it can scale up to terabytes and petabytes of workload. It has ANSI SQL support as well, and you can use it. It also integrates with BigQuery ML. Now, if you take BigQuery ML, it is nothing but machine learning on top using SQL on top of BigQuery. So basically, you can run your ML workload. It supports logistic regression model. It supports TensorFlow deep learning models. It supports XGBoost models. It supports time series models, ARIMA. So if you want to, without writing any Python code, if you want to quickly start it and do initial hypothesis, you can just use SQL to build the code. and then you can publish it against the database and get models which you can evaluate and everything. You have connected sheets which will look pretty similar to your Excel sheet, but it can process huge amount of data. You can write your typical Excel functions on top of it. There's a BigQuery BI engine where you can connect your data BI engine directly to the data and do analysis on large scale data. And there is also a BigQuery GIS, which is more for like geospatial information. It also supports federated querying. When I say federated querying, you can connect your data in Cloud SQL, in Cloud Spanner, into BigQuery. You can join tables and everything. It supports federated querying. It also supports multi cloud querying, right? So when I say multi cloud, there's a BigQuery Omni, where if your data is in S3, you can also use BigQuery Omni to query the data. But again, that's still in the beta phase of it, right? So it is pretty good for your data warehouse workload. It's pretty good for your predictive analytics. Now this is one chart that you can see on which to use when. If you see, like if you have structured data and if you need transactional support, then you can use Cloud SQL or Cloud Spanner. If you need analytical workload, then you can use BigQuery. Now, if your data is structured or unstructured, even though here in the cloud storage it shows unstructured, if your data is structured or unstructured, for both you can use cloud storage. The reason it's not showing structured here is basically you don't define a schema really like you do in BigQuery. You don't create a table, you just dump the data over there, right? So basically it will still be considered as an unstructured file because we don't know much about it until how we handle it in the processing layer. Now for semi-structured data, right, if you have JSON file or if you need a fully indexed file, then you can go for Cloud Data Store. Now Cloud Data Store I have not covered, but it is similar to MongoDB. You can load JSON document and then you can fully query on the JSON document as you want. But if you want more like a key value store, then you can go for Cloud Bigtable. So this is a typical like use case map on how to use this different storage tiers. And there's one more where you can see like cloud data store is nothing but document based NoSQL platform. Your Bigtable is wide column based NoSQL platform. You have cloud storage, which is nothing but object storage. Your cloud SQL, which is nothing but a relational SQL system. It supports MySQL, Postgres, and SQL Server. Cloud Spanner is also relational. But if you see for cloud SQL, it supports only up to 30 terabyte. But for Cloud Spanner, it supports petabytes, and BigQuery supports petabyte plus. So this typically like how you use your different storage format. And if you have complex queries and everything, then you can see basically Cloud SQL, Spanner, and BigQuery are completely SQL compliant, where you can build complex queries. If you want transaction support, then you have to look at Cloud SQL or Cloud Spanner or even Cloud Data Store. So this is basically a comparison on based on your use case of which one to choose, right? So this are like different storage options available in Google Cloud Platform. And I just gave you a broad overview. We will go into the detail in my future video where I will show you different architecture patterns and also processing capability of this storage and as well as compute capability of Google Cloud Platform. Thank you very much.